The morning after an arts festival at a Pune college, security opened the rear parking lot and found a scooter still chained to the fence. The student who rode it home every day hadn't picked it up. On the seat was a canvas tote with a stamped library slip, a half-eaten peppermint, and a leaflet for a women's self-defense workshop that had taken place the night before. At first, campus authorities logged it as another late return, a routine missing person. By nightfall, it was a different file. The fourth woman from 3 campuses to vanish within a 12-week window inside the Pune-Mumbai corridor, each last seen near a library, each carrying books, each approached by a man who looked trustworthy. Her name was Ananya Banerjee, 19, first-year architecture. Her friends said she left the workshop early to catch a bus. A grainy camera at the gate saw her pause for a man with a sling on his right arm, thin, clean-shaven, a polite smile. He gestured toward a small hatchback with the boot open, asked for help lifting an easel into the trunk. The footage showed a brief conversation, then 2 silhouettes moving to the car, then nothing. The hatchback's left taillight was dimmer than the right. The plate was smeared with mud. Investigators flagged the tape, but they didn't know yet that the helpful stranger with the arm cast had been seen before. Outside a campus library in Navi Mumbai, in a bookstore in Koregaon Park, and near a bus stop in Thane. Always a different name, always a different story, always the same sling. Inspector Ravi Chavan of Pune Crime Branch started with the tote. The library slip showed a return stamped at 7:42 p.m. Ananya's phone pinged a cell tower near the campus gate at 7:49, then went dark. 2 minutes later, an automatic number plate recognition camera on Senapati Bapat Road logged a faded silver Hyundai Santro with a smeared rear plate and a faintly lit left tail lamp. The characters weren't readable, but the camera captured a cracked bumper sticker with a crescent of peeled adhesive. It was nothing dramatic, until a constable stitched it with earlier reports. The same tail lamp quirk and the same bumper scar appeared in a petrol pump CCTV outside Panvel on the night a different student vanished. A pattern was finally visible. The first file in the pattern belonged to a sociology major from Navi Mumbai, who disappeared after telling her roommate she was stepping outside to make a quick call. She had been studying judicial reforms and spent afternoons at the city court library. Her last text said she'd met a law student who knew the court archives inside out. The second file was a medical intern in Pune who lent a disabled visitor her phone to book a ride because his screen didn't respond with a plaster on. She was captured on a chemist's camera walking beside a slim man in a navy baseball cap, his right arm in a beige sling. The third was an MBA candidate in Thane, last seen leaving a seminar on ethics in startups. Her class WhatsApp thread shows her sending, "Guy from the talk says he can introduce me to an incubator. Be back in 20. By the time Chavan sat with all 3 case diaries, the same narrative moved through each. A well-spoken young man, precise about campus routines, making small favors sound like opportunities. He was the stranger students felt safe helping because he never asked for much. Help with a car boot, quick advice on a case citation, 2 minutes to carry a box because of an injured arm. It was the sling that collapsed every boundary. The first real lead didn't come from a camera, it came from a parking ticket. The Santro received an e-challan for stopping at a no-parking zone outside Ferguson College the previous week. The low-res image on the ticket system was useless for the plate, but it clearly showed a missing left wheel cap and a sun-faded dashboard idol on the passenger side. Chavan's team pulled footage from a jewelry shop across the street and found a cleaner angle. The driver got out, left arm free, right arm strapped against his chest in a sling. He wasn't limping, he wasn't struggling. He looked practiced. He kept the sling on while he tied the trunk rope smoothly with his left hand. Then he turned his face toward the shop window, catching a reflection. sharp jaw, short hair, no beard, a faint scar near the left eyebrow. They pushed the image to informants and mechanics. A Kothrood workshop owner recognized the bumper scar and missing wheel cap. He remembered a customer who insisted the left headlamp flickered only sometimes and refused a full replacement, asking for jugad, a fast fix. The name on the receipt was A. Khanna, paid in cash. The phone number was switched off. But the mechanic remembered one detail. The customer ate peppermints constantly and left a roll on the seat. Detectives traced A. Khanna through phone vendors. The SIM belonged to a dead-end address in Kalyan, where the landlord said a polite tenant stayed 3 weeks, maybe less, paid in cash, no ID, said he was studying law, preparing for entrances. A neighbor remembered his routine: morning jogs, evening returns, a car cover pulled meticulously at night. The neighbor also remembered a voice, pleasant, soft-spoken, like those radio anchors. When investigators canvassed around the law prep centers in Pune and Navi Mumbai, front desks produced sign-in sheets where an A. Khanna, A. Kumar, A. K. had attended paid demos, left-handed signatures, tidy, slanted. By now, families were seeing each other's names on the news. They noticed the detail no one wants to notice. Their daughters were careful. They didn't trust strangers. They traveled in groups. They messaged constantly. The man had found a way to bypass all that by borrowing the very rituals of safety: libraries, workshops, court corridors, thick textbooks. He presented himself as the kind of person people are trained to help. The case turned when a woman from Churchgate came forward. She hadn't gone missing because she had listened to an instinct. She described a man in a sling who approached her outside a library, said he'd dropped his pen cap under the front seat of his car, asked if she could just hold the torch on the phone for a second, while he reached underneath with his good arm. When he opened the passenger door, she saw the seat rolled far back and a length of rope coiled under the floor mat. She stepped away. He instantly shifted tone, laughed it off, said, "No problem, I'll manage," and vanished into traffic. She noted the car, silver Santro, left tail lamp dim, dashboard idle taped crooked. The next day, she saw the news and called. Her statement nudged the timeline into focus. The man wasn't improvising, he was rehearsing. He knew how campus guards rotated, where street cameras had blind spots, and when to park in a wedge outside their coverage. He knew exactly how far to push a conversation before triggering doubt, and when to retreat without leaving a scene. That control told Shivan something else. This wasn't his first city. A data analyst on the team trawled through e-Challens for Santros with left-side lighting defects within a 100-kilometer radius over 4 months. One ticket in Lonavala matched the bumper scar. 2 in Dadar showed the idol's silhouette. They pulled municipal camera reels, toll plaza logs, and petrol pump footage along the Mumbai-Pune expressway. A pattern emerged. The same car hit Kailapur toll between 8:10 and 8:30 p.m. on evenings where victims disappeared, always heading away from the city within 30 minutes of the last sighting. This wasn't a man hiding in the hills. He was using the busiest roads, blending into the routine flow. The file grew heavier with witness objects: a handwritten visitor slip at a campus law society, A. Ka, with a flourish. A Metro card swipe at Ghatkopar 2 minutes after a camera saw the Santro take a U-turn. A petrol pump invoice with a smudged thumbprint on the reverse. A bookstore loyalty form with a fake email that still matched his naming pattern. A court library ledger where he copied citations for criminal procedure, bail, and custody. He wasn't just playing law student. He was studying how investigations breathe. Victimology sharpened. He picked women who were decisive, high-achieving, used to managing logistics. He mirrored their tempo, quoted case names to the law students, asked quick anatomy clarifications to the interns, praised productivity to the MBAs. He sounded like them, then directed their attention to a practical task: lift, carry, hold, advise, while his right arm stayed in the sling, which forced them to step where he needed them. No threats, no theatricality, just an engineered normal moment that inverted in seconds. They gave the unknown subject a working name: Cast Man. The press called him the Santro Stranger. Inside the squad room, a different label started to float: the Indian Ted Bundy. Not for the gore, but for the charm turned into a tool, the cast as a key, the calculated proximity to libraries and courts, the self-correction when a target balked. That label carried a warning: if you're dealing with someone who studies your moves and edits his own, your first clean shot at him is likely to be your only one. The first real shot came from a cheap boarding house in Dadar West. A receptionist remembered a man who checked in under Ankit Kulkarni, paid for 3 nights, never slept there. He used the room as a locker, a gym bag under the bed, a change of shirts, a folder of printouts, bus timetables, campus event schedules, a list of public talks around the city. The folder also included a laminated car wash coupon stamped by a Shivajinagar outlet in Pune. On the back, someone had doodled left-handed rope knots. They raided the Shivajinagar car wash. The manager pointed at a camera. The footage showed the Santro inching forward, the driver stepping out to chat. No sling, both arms free. He was joking with the attendant, flipping his hair off his forehead, eyebrows moving when he smiled. The attendant remembered him. Clean fellow, spoke like a lawyer, left-handed, big on mints. They froze the video as the man signed the bill with a looping A. This time, the camera held his face clean enough for a face search across voter IDs and college databases. The match wasn't perfect, but it was close. Arav Kulkarni, 27, dropped from a Pune law college after first year, previously enrolled in a Mumbai psychology program, interned briefly at an NGO helpline, volunteered at 2 campus fests as a logistics coordinator. No criminal record. A tidy CV with hobbies listed as marathons, debate, mentoring juniors. He had a father who ran a hardware shop in Kalyan, a mother who taught English part-time, and a school debate photo where he wore a navy cap, scar peeking near the left eyebrow. When they pulled call detail records for phones contacting Arav's parents, a second number surfaced. Prepaid, often switched off. Active near campuses on the dates that mattered. That SIM hopped towers along the expressway in minutes that overlapped with the toll passes. The analytics whiteboard finally had a name under the car. Detectives picked the quietest move. Approach the parents first. His father, dignified, careful, said Arav lived here and there because of exam prep. His mother showed a drawer with folded clothes, a roll of peppermints, a cheap beige sling with fraying edges, the knot worn smooth. She said he sprained his shoulder months ago, always forgot to throw the sling away. Siobhan asked to take it. She agreed without hesitation, apologizing for the dust under the bed. The sling yielded skin cells and a fiber match to the rope found under the Dadar guest house bed. More useful was the timing. 3 evenings before Ananya vanished, Arav had dinner in Kalyan with his parents, then left at 7:10 p.m. The Santro hit the Kalapur toll at 8:19. Ananya's phone went dark at 7:49. The car's route stitched exactly through the minutes their whiteboard needed. They set surveillance on the hardware shop, watched banks and petrol pumps around Kalyan, and checked every Santro with a left tail lamp issue across Pune and Mumbai. On a Tuesday afternoon, a constable in Andheri flagged a Santro with a taped plate and a missing wheel cap pulling into a basement lot under a co-working space that hosted Pitch Night Legal Tech. They rolled unmarked cars and plainclothes up the ramp. The Santro was cool. The parking stub read 1437. A receptionist said a man with a sling had just taken the elevator with a stack of brochures for a mentorship circle. A lift inspection revealed his trick. He'd taken the lift to the second floor and the stairs down to the service exit. The guard at the alley said he left without the sling. They were a minute late. When you miss by a minute against someone who runs on rehearsed minutes, you don't go home. You widen the grid. They pushed alerts to toll booths, sent his face to booking clerks at budget hotels, and quietly briefed campus guards to stall anyone in a sling in parking lanes with a routine vehicle check, buying the team 30 extra seconds if the cast man returned to pattern. That night, a toll camera near Vashi caught the Santro heading east. 2 hours later, a Panvel petrol pump camera filmed the same dashboard idle and the same driver buying mints with cash. The timestamp read 22:11. The clerk remembered a Navy cap and a joke about night petrol saving the city. They needed one anchor that would hold long enough to make contact. It arrived from a place Arav must have felt safe, the court library in Mumbai. An attendant found a reserved seat slip signed A. Kulkarni with an email ID that routed to a throwaway inbox. On the reverse, someone had scribbled CRPC, bail, remand procedure, and a list of station names with times in pencil: Dadar, Ghatkopar, Vashi, Panvel. It was a commute map and a custody map in one. Chavan filed for a non-bailable warrant and looped in units across 2 cities. The order landed on his desk at 11:20 a.m. on Wednesday. At 12:05, a campus guard at a law college in Churchgate pinged the hotline. Man with sling Santro, left tail lamp dim, asking for help with a box near the gate. The description ended with the only thing that mattered. He's still here. The call from Churchgate was the first time a guard used the hotline exactly as trained. Keep him talking. Keep him on the property. Ask for the register. The guard at the gate asked the man in the sling for a vehicle number for the visitor log. The man smiled, said he would just check, and drifted toward the Santro. Plainclothes officers were 40 seconds out. The guard watched him open the passenger door with his left hand, catch the rearview mirror with a glance, and then change his mind. He closed the door, thanked the guard, and walked away without a word, sling still on. By the time the unmarked car nosed into the lane, he had folded himself into the midday crowd. Cap pulled low, head down, the sling acting like cover. They lost him, but they did not lose the car. The Santro idled beside the curb with a warm engine and a parking stub still in the slot. A cotton hand towel lay across the steering wheel, lemon-scented. In the footwell, mint wrappers, 3 of them, twisted tight. The glove box offered a stack of prepaid toll receipts, a court library day pass for A. Kulkarni, a petrol invoice stamped Panvel, and a laminated campus volunteer badge with a glossy photo and a name that would not survive a database check. The boot carpet was cleaner than the rest of the car. Fresh shampoo lines running crosswise, as if someone had scrubbed more than one pass. Under the carpet, wedged into the metal lip, a beige thread matched the sling fiber from the Dadar guest house. In the door pocket, a coil of cloth tape and 2 old visitor stickers from college events. Crime scene technicians lifted DNA from the mint wrappers and the cup holder rim. Layton's came up on the rearview mirror and the petrol receipts. When the registration papers arrived from the RTO, they told a familiar half-truth. The previous owner in Navi Mumbai had sold the car to Ankit Kulkarni, transfer pending, cash in hand. The phone number on the sale note was dormant. It didn't matter. The toll timestamps and library pass pinned the car to Arav's timeline more tightly than any RC book could. They pulled every camera around the law college. In one frame, 2 minutes before the guard's call, the man in the sling walked a corridor with a hardback book under his left arm. He nodded to a poster advertising internships in litigation. He checked his watch at the gate. He wasn't scouting anymore, he was executing. The plan died at the register. When a plan dies, people like him pivot. Siobhan's team pivoted faster. They locked down the Santro, rolled it on a flatbed into a police garage, and swabbed every surface. They bagged the sling thread and the cloth tape. They photographed the dashboard idol, crooked and sun-faded, the exact silhouette that had become shorthand on the whiteboard for weeks. Then they turned to the city. Alerts went to toll plazas. Stall any Santro with taped plates and left tail dim. Ask for documents. Call the number on the card. Campus guards received an updated circular with the face from the car wash video and one instruction. Any man with a sling asking for help moves to the security desk, no exceptions. Hotels got a list of aliases and a photo with the cap removed. At the same time, a small 3-person unit took the quiet route again, returning to Kalyan to sit gently with the parents long enough to gauge whether he would contact them. He did not. Someone like Erav does not bring heat home. When they cracked the prepaid SIM next to his name and pulled tower hops over the last month, a handful of addresses pulsed. A cybercafe in Dadar that still used paper sign-in sheets. A cheap co-working lounge in Andheri with hourly passes. A budget hotel in Thane where A. Kumar had paid for a week and left on day 2. They walked each site with printouts. The Dadar cafe owner, a man who remembered faces the way accountants remember numbers, pointed at the photo. The sign-in sheet logged AK in neat left-handed script at 11 in the morning on the day after Ananya vanished. CCTV showed a cap, no sling, and a man typing with his left hand while his right stayed almost motionless at his side, as if the muscle memory of the cast had hardened into posture. They asked what he printed. The cafe kept a bin of unclaimed pages. In it, a schedule of campus talks across Mumbai and Pune, a list of court library timings, 2 pages of CRPC sections on remand, and a map of the suburban rail network with Churchgate circled in pencil. A corner of one page carried an imprint from whatever lay above it when he wrote a rope knot diagram and the word bowline in block letters. It wasn't theatrical, it was functional. Every discovery told the same story. His props were not fetishes, they were tools. The Santro gave them more than DNA. In the trunk, under the spare tire, a shallow compartment hid a small gym bag with a few standard items. Nothing illegal in isolation, everything situational in context. A clean beige sling identical to the frayed one at his mother's home. 3 lengths of soft rope coiled tight. A roll of adhesive tape, cheap gloves with the fingers clipped, and a double-sided tape strip cut into short rectangles. A zip pouch held library day passes for 3 campuses and a clutch of visitor stickers. The bag also contained an envelope with petrol receipts from Panvel and Kolhapur, stamped on nights that matched 3 disappearances. It wasn't a confession. It was a sequence. Forensics matched the rope fibers in the bag to the fibers stuck in the carpetwork of the Santro's trunk. A hair caught inside the gym bag yielded mitochondrial DNA consistent with the family DNA obtained from his mother's discarded hairbrush, a lawful collection under warrant. The mint wrappers carried enough saliva to place one male profile at the center of the car. The dashboard and gear shift returned partials of the same left-hand dominant pattern from the Dadar guest house. The case that had felt like fog finally started to condense. With the car in custody, Arav's world compressed to whatever cash and cards he held in his pockets. But his pattern had a second engine, his need to practice. 2 evenings later, a student at a Navi Mumbai library reported a man with a sling asking if she could "Just hold this page down while I copy a citation." When she said no and walked to the security desk, he didn't press. He vanished. A minute later, in a different aisle, a woman recorded a short video on her phone of a man adjusting his sling and turning his face away from her camera. The clip hit a student group, then 3, then a campus security WhatsApp. The man in the frame tilted his head and massaged his left shoulder with his right hand. It was the only tell he never edited fully out, the phantom ache of an injury he used as theater. The video gave them the shirt and cap he was wearing that night. When a CID unit checked garment stalls on a lane he frequented, a vendor remembered the sale. He didn't know the name, but he remembered another detail. A customer bought a cheap duffel and asked for a roll of clear tape for a label. He also asked for scissors and then changed his mind, saying he would borrow at the office. Small edges like that mattered. Someone who had relied on his car's trunk now needed a bag. They found the bag the next morning at a locker facility in Thane. The manager said a polite man had rented a small locker for a week in cash, showed a voter ID that would not survive scrutiny, and placed inside paper folders like office people. He opened it twice, briefly. The attendant remembered he smelled faintly of peppermint and hand sanitizer. Under warrant, they popped the locker and cataloged its contents. A stack of printouts about bus schedules, an envelope of photocopied ID photos cut from old forms, a fake campus volunteer badge blank with space for a name, a folded campus map with arrows drawn between the gate and the parking bay, and a notebook of right margin lists, times, locations, and the word register, circled twice with a question mark, as if he was reminding himself to anticipate the question that had stopped him at Churchgate. The notebook also carried 3 names, first names only, and 2 object lists: easel, box, boot rope. They matched those lists to the pretexts reported by 3 witnesses across 2 months. He did not improvise, he rotated scripts. The closer the net pulled, the more he leaned on crowds. He tried the evening rush at Dadar, hugging the edge of a platform, sling on, duffel light. An undercover officer shadowed him while pretending to scroll through a phone. He did not approach women on the platform. He waited, watched faces, stepped into and out of compartments as trains pulled in, testing where a corridor bottleneck might give him privacy for a long enough minute. The officer radioed each move. When a second undercover joined, he drifted away, down the stairs across the road into a bus stand's dark fringe. He had learned how to feel a tail without ever looking back. So they baited the only stage he couldn't resist, a campus with a public talk on careers in law. The briefing to security was simple. If a man in a sling tries to steer anyone to a vehicle or a quiet corner, he is escorted to the desk for anti-harassment counseling. A phrase chosen to sound procedural rather than punitive, the kind of phrase a polite manipulator would find hard to argue with. They seated the atrium with 2 female officers and 3 plainclothesmen who looked like students. They posted a decoy near a pinboard of event flyers with a heavy box labeled Donations. He arrived 20 minutes late, as if he had watched how the guard shifts at gates staggered to cover the start of an event and wanted the tail end. He wore a fresh sling, beige and unfrayed, and a different cap. He kept to the edges, scanning. When he turned to the pinboard, his eyes went to the box first, then to the woman standing beside it. He made a small frown, almost theatrical, as if to prepare for disappointment. He approached with the smile from the car wash video, the radio voice. He asked if she knew who to talk to about volunteer props for the next event. She said she wasn't sure and pointed him to the desk. He thanked her, stepped toward the desk, then pivoted half a step back and asked if she would mind helping him carry one awkward stand to his car because his shoulder was useless today. She said the desk would help. He kept the smile on, nodded, turned, and walked toward the door. The plainclothes officer in the corridor heard himself whisper, "Now," without realizing he'd spoken. They let him clear the threshold so he would not bolt into a stairwell. The outside team closed from both sides. One officer asked for identity politely, showed a card, and gestured to the security desk for 2 minutes only. The man's eyes did not widen. He reached with his left hand to adjust his sling, then dropped the cap brim lower. He said he was late for a meeting, and could they please walk and talk. The officer repeated, just as politely, that this would take 2 minutes. The man smiled again, the same smile he had used to recruit help at gates and boot lids, and then he ran. It was not a sprinter's run, not a straight line. He cut across a flower bed, brushed a parked scooter, and slipped into the stream of people moving toward the station. The sling came off in one clean pull. The cap vanished under his shirt. He turned down a service alley where 2 bikes boxed him in as a wall. He pivoted, found a soft gap, and slid through just as a third plainclothes reached for his arm. The grip closed on fabric and air. He hit the main road, shoulders folded in, head tucked, looking suddenly shorter. The team did not scream. They moved like they had trained. Radios up, eyes on corners, one unit holding the gate, another pushing forward, a third slicing lateral to cut him off at the pedestrian overbridge. On the overbridge, a man without a sling paused at the top step and checked his watch. He blended so well, it took a beat too long to clock the scar above his eyebrow and the way he held his right arm close when no one was looking. He tried to drift down toward the platform. 2 officers came up from below and one approached from above. He did not panic. He reached for an explanation. "There's a misunderstanding," and then lowered his hands in a theatrical display of cooperation that ended as soon as the nearest handcuff clicked. He twisted, not wildly, not like a brawler, but with a precision that told you he had rehearsed the blind spots of a wrist. He didn't break free. The cuff held. The second cuff met his other wrist. The sling landed on the steps like a shed skin. They walked him down the stairs with the crowd flowing around them. He did not thrash. He kept the radio voice and said he would clarify everything at the station. In the back of the car, under the seat, they found a folded volunteer badge with the name line blank and a strip of double-sided tape cut to length. In his duffel, rope, tape, gloves, another sling still in its wrapper, a roll of mints, a notebook with a new page at the back that read, in tidy left-handed writing, "Register, Plan B." At the station, the evidence went on the table the way investigators prefer: objects first, dates next, patterns last. The Santro photos lined the wall, dashboard idle crooked, bumper scar, left tail dim. The mint wrappers sat in clear bags. The rope coils lay beside the beige sling. The petrol receipts stacked into a chronology. The campus day passes, 3 of them with the same careful hand, formed a second chronology that overlapped the first. The notebook from the locker contributed the script. The cybercafe printout supplied the awareness of procedure that had made him difficult to catch. Each item was a small, hard edge. Pushed together, they described a person more precisely than any face ever could. He asked for water, he asked for a lawyer, he asked to make one phone call. When he spoke, he kept the same register he used at gates and counters, the same steady meter. He did not confess, he did not collapse. He did something colder. He tried to edit their timeline in real time, suggesting he had been at different stations at the minutes that mattered, offering alternative roads, invoking the chaos of a city as alibi. It was a strategy built on their previous uncertainty. It arrived too late. While he parsed minutes, teams moved. A search warrant opened a small rented room in Thane that looked like a study more than a hideout. Neat bed, a stack of law books with pristine spines, a folder of campus flyers, another bag with a sling, and a drawer with a handful of small personal items that did not belong to him: an earring, a library key card, 2 hair ties, a photocopied ID clipped from a lost and found board. They photographed every item, logged each against missing persons files, and sent the lot to the lab. On one hair tie, a DNA profile would later match a family swab from Navi Mumbai. On the library keycard, a partial print would align with the Santro's rear view. On the earring, a flake of adhesive would match the double-sided tape in his bag. The man who had engineered normal moments until they inverted had just met a room where every object inverted back. The cast was off. The voice stayed calm. The evidence kept arriving. And outside the interview window, families began to stand in the corridor, watching a door that would open next with answers. The interview started with the objects. Not accusations, not theory. Inspector Ravi Chavan slid a single petrol receipt across the table and read the timestamp aloud. He slid a toll slip next, same night, same arc. Then a campus day pass with the left-hand signature. Then a mint wrapper in a sealed bag. He didn't ask questions. He let the paper stack say what it said: road, place, hour, hand. Arav Kulkarni looked at everything like a student preparing for an exam he already knew the pattern of. He asked for the date of the remand hearing. He asked if any media were outside. He asked the constable for more water. When he finally spoke to the timeline, it was to move it. He placed himself at different stations by a few minutes, offered alternate roads by habit, and tried to turn the city's size into his alibi. Chavan didn't argue minutes. He put down a photo from the car wash video where Arav was laughing without a sling, and asked the only direct question of the hour: "When did your shoulder heal?" Silence, then the faintest shrug, the kind a person gives when the joke isn't funny anymore. While the interview room stayed calm, the search teams accelerated. The Thane room was processed inch by inch. The trophy drawer's contents were logged, earring photographed, library keycard swabbed, hair ties packaged, the photocopied ID scanned, adhesive flakes lifted onto stubs. The lab moved fast because they had anchors now. The hair tie DNA hit against a family profile from Navi Mumbai. The keycard belonged to a medical intern from Pune. A latent on the keycard corner matched the Santro's rearview mirror partial. None of it screamed. All of it stacked. With a charge sheet in sight, they still needed one kind of witness the defense couldn't fold: surviving eyes. The woman from Churchgate, who had stepped away from the car when she saw rope under the floor mat, came in, watched a lineup from behind glass, and pointed to Arav without pausing. The student who filmed him adjusting his sling on library stacks nodded when the cap came off during the identification parade. The scar above the left eyebrow did the rest. The Dadar Cyber Cafe owner testified he printed legal sections and campus schedules for AK, who typed left-handed while keeping his right arm unnaturally still, sling or not. The kiosk vendor remembered selling a duffel and clear tape to a soft-spoken man who asked for scissors and then decided to borrow at the office. The Kothrud mechanic repeated the line the whole case would be known for: he ate mints like they were habit. They followed the paper to the places he thought were invisible. The petrol receipts clustered around Panvel and Kolhapur on nights that mattered. A grid of expressway laybys, quiet pockets cut off by concrete, became search coordinates. Teams swept culverts, tree lines, and drainage viaducts. They found disturbed soil in a stand of scrub east of a toll loop where the Santro had flashed by after midnight. They found rope fibers in a grate. They found personal items: wristwatch, torn notebook cover, the corner of a laminated slip. None of it graphic, all of it human. Families were called. A prosecutor stood in a field and decided which sentences could be spoken. The charge sheet didn't try to be literary. It enumerated: It charged kidnapping, wrongful confinement, murder, destruction of evidence, personation, forgery, and violations under the Motor Vehicles Act for false plates. It tied each count to an object with a date. It used the word pattern sparingly and premeditation precisely. It cited CRPC provisions Irav had printed himself and stacked his own study habits against him. The Indian Ted Bundy label was left to the press conferences. In the document that mattered, he was accused number 1. Bail was denied on the first hearing. The judge looked at the flight pattern and the stack of aliases and wrote, "Risk beyond acceptable." The defense filed for medical evaluation. Standard when a case carries a label that looks like a profile. The psychiatric team did their job without indulging headlines. They found no psychosis, no incapacity. They wrote, in the neutral language courts require, that the accused demonstrated instrumental social charm, high situational awareness, and goal-directed deception, with intact understanding of right and wrong. In other words, he knew exactly what he was doing. Trial opened in a packed sessions court 6 months later. Families sat in the second row. The dashboard idol from the Santro sat on an evidence table, crooked and sun-faded, the most ordinary thing in the room. The prosecution's first witness was the guard who had asked for the visitor register and watched a plan die. He told the court he had simply asked for the vehicle number because that was what the circular said. He told them the man smiled and walked away. He told them the car was warmed and waiting, a towel draped across the steering wheel like a habit. Then came the mechanics of a pattern: mechanic, car wash attendant, cyber cafe owner, co-working receptionist, toll booth supervisor, petrol pump clerk, boarding house keeper. No one saw a crime, everyone saw a component. The prosecutor threaded them in the exact order a normal day turns into something else. A sling, a short favor, a move to a vehicle, a parking stub, a road on the screen, a toll ping, a petrol receipt, a cleaned boot. When the prosecutor placed the beige sling from the Thane drawer beside the frayed sling from Kalyan, the courtroom was quiet, not because it was dramatic, but because it was so small. Forensics did the heavy lifting because they always do when the story has been engineered to feel like a coincidence. The rope in the gym bag matched fibers snagged in the Santro's trunk. Adhesive chemistry on the trophy earring aligned with the double-sided tape from the duffel. The mint wrapper saliva matched the major male profile in the car and a flake on the court library pass. Mobile tower hops braided toll timestamps into minutes that could not be moved by story. A handwriting analyst testified the left-leaning scripts across A. Khanna, A. Kumar, and A.K. were one hand trying to look like 3. The lab's final chart, object by object, date by date, was the kind of visual juries remember because it tells them they are not guessing. The defense worked where defense always works in a circumstantial case. No direct eyewitness to the moment. Items common to many. Car previously owned. IDs unreliable. They asked if a Santro's left tail lamp could be dim for many cars. The toll supervisor said sure, but this Santro also had a bumper scar and a crooked idol and hit the booth at the same minute the victim's phone went dark. They asked if mints were proof. The prosecution said no, but the DNA on the wrapper placed the mouth that ate them inside the car that carried the day pass that tracked the night of the disappearances. They asked if rope proved murder. The prosecution didn't pretend it did. They let the chain of small hard edges be its own weight. When Arav chose to testify, briefly, circled by counsel, he kept the register he used at gates and counters. He admitted to the car. He admitted to the sling as remnant of an old sprain. He admitted to helping at events. He denied everything that mattered. He said the trophies were found items, the locker for convenience, the locker notebook, drafts for a volunteer gig. He said the cybercafe printouts were law prep. He said any interaction with any woman outside a library or campus was polite, brief, and misremembered. He did not raise his voice. He did not smirk. He did not confess. The prosecution did not ask him why he kept 2 slings, 4 ropes, and a roll of double-sided tape cut into rectangles. They asked if he had ever written "Register, Plan B" in a notebook found in his duffel. He said he didn't recall. They showed him the page. He said it could be mine, could be anyone's. They asked him to write "Register, Plan B" with his left hand on a blank sheet. He declined on advice of counsel. The judge nodded. The jury watched. The page stayed on the table, black on white, stubborn. On day 22, the woman from Churchgate took the stand. She told the court she had stepped back because she saw rope under the floor mat, and the passenger seat rolled far back. She said the man laughed, changed tone, and left like nothing had happened. The defense called it interpretation. The judge called it instinct borne out by subsequent events. The woman looked at the sling on the evidence table like a tool she had seen in daylight with her own eyes before it became a headline. On day 25, Ananya Banerjee's father identified her library key card and the canvas tote cataloged on the first day of this story. He did it without spectacle. He said the key card always lived in the outer pocket of her bag because she hated fumbling at gates. He said he had told her, like fathers do, to be careful. He said she was. Then he sat down. The verdict landed on a Friday. The judge read for 40 minutes, holding the chain in legal language. He said the case was built on converging lines of circumstance that achieve moral certainty. He said the accused's methods displayed cold premeditation, calculated selection of targets, and misuse of social trust, and the cast was not a medical aid but an instrument of deception. On murder counts where human remains were located and identified by DNA and personal items, he pronounced guilt under Section 302 of the IPC. On counts where the bodies were not recovered but corroboration rose to compelling, he entered conviction under kidnapping, wrongful confinement, grievous assault leading to disappearance, and destruction of evidence. He convicted on personation and forgery. He convicted on motor vehicle tampering. He used the phrase "rarest of rare" and paused. Sentencing in cases like this bends a city. The prosecution argued for death, citing pattern, persistence, and the way he used the courts and libraries as cover. The defense argued residual doubt and the absence of direct eyewitnesses at the moments of killing. Families asked for an end that felt like an end. The judge wrote what the law permits: death on the counts with bodies identified, and a whole life term without remission on the others. Sentences to run consecutively. He justified it by the methodical stripping of autonomy and exceptional depravity evidenced by the orchestration of ordinary spaces into instruments. He used the word deterrence carefully. He used the word denunciation once. He used the word memory to describe the libraries and gates that would now carry warnings drafted from this case. Appeals were automatic. The High Court reviewed the chain and upheld. The Supreme Court admitted the petition, compressed the record into essentials, and, a year later, commuted one death count to life while confirming the rest, writing that the bruise of uncertainty in a single chain should not tip the moral certainty of others. The sentence that would matter most to families, never walking free, survived every page. Inside Yerwada, Arav's habits calcified into routine. Early wake, long walks in the yard's permitted radius, request forms written in neat left-hand script asking for books on criminal procedure and ethics, of all things. He stayed polite. He stayed quiet. He accepted no interviews. He became a file number in a block where the radio voice had no one to charm. Outside, the case built its afterlife in the ways these cases do. Campus guards kept laminated circulars by the visitor registers. If you need help, the desk will help. If someone asks you for help, bring them to the desk. Law libraries adjusted seat reservation systems to reduce corridor encounters. Event organizers replaced quick favors at the gate with a single service desk staffed in pairs. A short module in self-defense workshops moved from strikes and holds to recognizing engineered ambiguity, sling, small favors, urgency. No dramatics. Just a script to beat a script. Families did what families do, build rituals from objects that survived. One mother wore her daughter's library card on a chain for a year and then put it in a drawer. One father took a different route to work to avoid the road where toll time stamps had turned into an exhibit. Ananya's architecture classmates designed a reading alcove on campus with a framed line under the shelf. If someone asks you to help, call a guard and make it the rule. The guard who had asked for the register visited once, stood in the alcove, and put his hand on the frame like a witness would on a Bible. People will call it a Bundy story because the parallels are easy: the cast, the voice, the court corridors. The detectives who worked it will tell you the closer truth. He was not a copy of anyone. He was an Indian man who learned how this country's campuses breathe and used that breath against them until a guard, a camera, a mechanic, a cafe owner, a vendor, a clerk, and a folder of ordinary pieces refused to let minutes be moved by story. He rehearsed a life. The city wrote it back. In the end, the object that pinned him hardest wasn't rope or tape or a receipt. It was the sling, beige, frayed, ordinary, the thing that turned strangers into helpers and doors into exits. In the evidence room, it sits in a tray, folded like a belt. On the list beside it, a single line in a lab tech's hand. Tool of approach. No adjectives, no myth. The case never needed them.